listener production.
Howdy team, you are listening to episode 121 of the Howie Games Part B, featuring a man of many talents, Craig Johnston. On we go. It's a remarkable tale you've told me so far. You mentioned earlier on the transfer, which I think you said was a record. So because of my lack of time to research, I've got it here. Johnston scored 16 goals in 64 games for Middlesbrough before moving to Liverpool in 1981 for a £650,000 transfer. That's a long way from the car park.
It is. And the funny thing is that that was the most expensive signing in Britain, if in the world. So I was the most expensive player in the world. And 2.5 years earlier, I was the worst player in the world that Middlesbrough had ever seen. So something must have happened in the Middlesbrough car park, and there was an awful lot of hard work. But you know, it's about incremental improvement, and you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I figured it out. And you know, again, it was extreme, and it was really, really, really tough. You could never find the words to explain how tough it is, but it was tough. It was tough. And sometimes I say I felt like I was in jail. And in bits, you know, in the coal shed and the car park, I felt like I was in jail. And then at other times, I think it's the most pure and beautiful time of my life ever, because there was no apps, no iPhones, no internet, no television sets. It was black and white television, but yeah, apart from the Coronation Street, just that whole day from 7 a.m, 7 p.m. was there's just one purpose and one mission, and that was to actually play with that perfect object and you know, reap the rewards that it clearly had brought to others. And years before, I'd seen a Pelé film, a film on Pelé, and then that with the 1966 World Cup, you know, the commonality, you know, the Brazilian, the Giant of Brazil, it was called, a famous movie, was a little round football, you know, and to this day, it's still the largest watched event, you know, in mankind. And it's given me such a fascinating and incredible life afterwards. I'm eternally grateful for that solitude, and that's what it was.
I hope we have time in your schedule for the life after football, but let's talk Liverpool for a moment. Now, people, when they want to know, well, how did he go for Liverpool? Won the European Cup, 5 league titles, and FA Cup. So you won a couple of those titles, the league titles. So you won the EPL for the modern football fan in 82 and 83. What is it like in the early 80s playing at Anfield in that red shirt, which probably had was it Crown Paints? Was Crown Paints your sponsor back in those days? Or that somewhere in my mind as a young fella, you're probably the best football team on the planet. What was life like for the bloke from Australia?
Actually, what you threw on at the end there, what was life like in that city for the bloke from Australia? Well, first of all, for the people in that city, Liverpool is a fascinating place. You know, it's not Manchester, it's not London, it's not Birmingham, and the Scousers are hilarious. I don't know if you know many Scousers.
I do.
But clearly there's also 2 teams in Liverpool, Reds and the Blue, and there is no love lost in a very friendly way between the Blue Noses and the Reds. And it's hilarious because they're at each other all the time, brother and sister, father and son, you know, blokes in pubs, and there's no let up from it. And I've often said that there's 3 currencies that make a Scouser, you know, or three things that make up any Scouser, you know, and it's music, you know, and going back to the Beatles and Jerry Marsden, Ferry Cross the Mersey, who just passed away, Jerry, and football, red or blue, and a sense of humour. And they just have this sense of irony about them that's hilarious. So it's a swinging city, you know, like Carnaby Street and all of that was in the swinging 60s. Well, Liverpool's outrageously cultural in their own little way, you know. So to be there at the time was just magnificent.
And to be a hero of the people, which you were. You were a hero of the people.
Well, they'll bring you back to earth pretty quickly, by the way. You know, a lot like Newcastle people. Very quickly, you think you're clever in that town, then all of a sudden you're not clever. You're a jerk. You know, and what I was going to say is that's what was happening, regardless of whether I was there or not. But I'm from a completely different culture, and I love other people's cultures. So whatever it was that this was it going on in the city, I had a nose for it, and like antennas that picked up the humour and the crack, and the dressing room banter was merciless. I mean, if you didn't have a crash helmet on, and you know what it's like in the dressing room, mate.
I do.
If you didn't have a crash helmet on in the morning, you would go home with a sore head, and they would crucify you, you know, for anything. So it was just as John Neal, who was eventually the manager of Middlesbrough, used to say every morning, it's great to be alive. He'd come onto the training ground and go, it's great to be alive. And you'd get there at the training ground at Liverpool, right? And you're playing, listen to this, you're playing 6-a-side against Dalglish and Souness, and you've got Grobbler in goal and Mulby up front and Johnny Barnes on the left wing, right? And you're going, oh my goodness, am I really playing 5-a-side on a crisp spring morning with a little bit of frost, you know, making the ball shoot off, right? And there's nobody there. There's no crowd, no nothing, you know, and someone gets nutmegged. You know, imagine if Kenny Dalglish got nutmegged. You know, it'd be hilarious, but you weren't allowed to laugh because it was King Kenny kind of thing. So you'd laugh behind your hand like this, you know, and he'd see you. So it was worse if he got caught laughing like this. But he hardly ever got nutmegged. But it was just, you'd thought you'd gone and died and gone to heaven. And then you realise that you're now getting paid for this. And I said on a couple of interviews back then, I'd have paid any money I had. If I didn't have that experience, I would have paid money to do that. Yet they were paying you. And they were just good blokes.
Johnston, very conclusively.
And don't forget, there was no social media. There was no media intrusion. Basically, the rules were so different, and they were all, you know, complete gentlemen at the same time. And, you know, it was everything was joyful. Everything was joyful and simple. This is what I'm getting back to. Black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. And we were the champions of England and the champions of Europe.
A bit of pushing, and indeed Ray Kennedy has got it. It's a bit short on the watch, in our opinion. But who will care about that, save the Spaniards. The one goal for the 4th year running has been enough. And those who stand on the top of Anfield will be the most delighted in the crowd.
So what does it do to you as a professional athlete when you walk out on the ground and they're singing that famous "You'll Never Walk Alone"? And you're out there and you've come from the coal shed, and then, as I said, you're playing for the best football team on the planet. How can you describe that to me?
Yeah, well, I'm a kind of nervous person. I've said this a couple of times before. It's like you want to vomit and you want to be sick because you're so nervous about playing badly or not playing your best, if you like. And you know that you're elevated to the level you described, but in 2 seconds, if you lose a ball or you let someone kick you, your leg could be broken because it's ferocious once you get on the field. the crowd and this glory turns into bloodshed. Seriously, very, very. It's like getting a bouncer on the head when you're playing first test against India or Pakistan or West Indies when they were on fire. You know, the whole nation, the whole world's watching, and one mistake. So, you know, you just either, some people are nervous and some are. I just felt sick in the stomach. But when the aggro started, then you had to be aggro. You had to stand up and be counted. And that's when the fight began. So then it was a fight. So you forgot all about that, and you're on survival mode. You know, you're trying not to get hurt, and you're probably trying to hurt someone if you can. Back in the day.
This is Lee. And it's Johnston. Oh, he's done well here. Is Craig Johnston. What a good finish. And he's had quite a night.
Due to the 17 minutes I had to prepare for this, there's only a couple of games I specifically want to ask you about, and I'll take them out of order. I asked you what it's like to run out on the ground like that. Take me to the 1986 FA Cup final versus Everton.
And on the signal, the teams will break away, and soon the action will be underway.
What is an FA Cup final like when you score, which you did at Wembley? What is that moment that we watch and it makes us smile? And I watched it in the 17 minutes I had of you scoring, and your hair and the red shirt and the terraces erupt.
Rush in for Morby. And he's there! There's Craig Johnston!
What's it like, Craig? I can see you smiling now, which I'm happy about.
Oh, it's euphoria that I've never had before, and I know I will never have again.
Liverpool are in the lead. Morby's big part in it, just as it was in the first one, and Johnston finishing it off.
Yeah, because you fought the odds. You fought the osteomyelitis in the hospital bed. You fought getting across, your school teachers that said you would never make anything. Jack Charlton, the ribbing of the dressing room. Then you're the highest transfer player, and people say you'll never be as good as Kevin Keegan. You'll never make it in the Liverpool team. And I actually had a hard time at Liverpool. With selection as well, because you've got all these world-class players, and I was never a traditional footballer with a traditional, position. I literally created my own style. So, I got dropped a lot, which really hurt emotionally and psychologically. So when you did get these rare opportunities, and I've said it and I'll say it again for you as your answer directly to the question, I could have died on the spot, a happy man, because the dream had come true. You know, I still got my leg, the scar's still there, and I felt like Mum and Dad's sacrifice had now been justified because I'd reached the dreams that I'd shared with them when I was a little kid. Make me cry actually, thinking about them back home, watching that live on television. And, if life had ended right there, I'd have died a happy man.
The final whistle, the double belongs to Kenny Dalglish and Liverpool. Winners here in the FA Cup by 3-1, having already clinched the First Division Championship.
Yeah, I didn't die. We had a big party and lots of champagne at the Mountbatten Hotel in London.
But just before the party, and I can see how emotional you are, I just want to ask you two questions on that. What's it like to walk up those steps and then the team gathers around in that famous shot and then the trophy goes up in the air? And that's my first memories of football, and a lot of people my generation, it's getting up or staying up and watching the FA Cup, and you being in it, in the red shirt with the long hair. And it was an impossible dream for all of us because it was the other side of the world for me watching as a sort of 10 or 11-year-old. What's it like when you walk up those steps?
The moment is here. Liverpool had won the double. Craig Johnston, the goal scorer.
Well, you've just said it, Howie. You've just explained that you saw that on television 12,000 miles away when you were a kid.
I remember it like that.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what happened to me when I ran onto the field at Middlesbrough the first time.
Yep.
Right, I tell you exactly the feeling, and you'll know this.
Good.
You know, in Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane, wherever, when there's a parade on, and there's a parade on in town, you know, and either it's the Anzacs or it's the float that comes past with bands and people, and the bands and the people are on the floats and they're waving to everybody. They're waving to everybody, all the little kids and the grandmas, and they're waving. Well, when I ran on the field at Middlesbrough, and when I stood on for the first time, right, and when I stood on the steps at Wembley with the Queen Mother, to get the trophy, for the first time, I wasn't a kid in the street like you were, waving to the float. I was on the float, waving to the people in the street, and that's what it felt like. I was on the float. It's that perspective where you, hang on a sec, I'm not waving anymore, I'm it. They're waving at me. So that was the weird feeling, along with that weird, I've transposed myself now. But to achieve anything in life, and especially at a high level of sport like that, you have to have dreams and you have to have thoughts. And those thoughts have to come from somewhere. And usually, just as you've explained, you were a young kid watching television and somebody was receiving some great. Well, I saw the Charlton brothers receiving the World Cup.
Yeah.
In the hospital, on black and white television, when the doctors told me they're going to chop my leg off. You know, so that's where my dream started. So it's very pertinent that you should put yourself in my place then. But all kids have dreams, girls and boys. You know what? We might win the World Cup with the Matildas. And you know that Sam Kerr and all the teammates, they had dreams as young girls to fight against the tide and, all the problems that women have that we don't have even. And they fought all of that. And they could be standing there and bringing home the World Cup to Australia. So when you're young, you've got to have dreams, and parents and teachers have got to encourage kids to do all the creative stuff, but then have discipline. So it's got to be both sides. You've got to have plan A and plan B, but you've got to be a dreamer. You've got to be a dreamer.
So when we're talking about parents and kids, whether it was that they were there, I don't know, or a phone call after an FA Cup final, after European Cup, did you have that time with your mum and dad to say thank you? And they said, I would imagine your dad, who wanted to be a professional footballer, where you had a moment where he said, son, you made it, you did it, you achieved what you're after?
Mate, don't start me. He's not here anymore, Dad.
I'm sorry to hear that, mate.
But I phoned him when I was in the bath. I got straight in the bath.
This is after the FA Cup?
Mobile phones had come out. I think they were big, huge things. And I think one of the journalists gave it to me. And, I spoke to Mum and Dad now. I was euphoric then. I wasn't, years later, well, now that he's gone especially. But I didn't need to know because Dad was a very proud bloke,
Can you remember any of the conversation?
Yeah, it was all joy, and it was all laughter, and it was all, I can't believe that's over, because not only did we win the FA Cup that year, we won the league.
Yeah.
We won the double, and only three teams last century had actually won the glorious double against, of all people, Everton. So it was a big moment, and I think there was no time to be sad and philosophical. It was a time to be joyous, and it's over. It's over. And mate, the level of competitiveness at that level, and I think we played about 62 games that season. Where have we ended up in the Champions League? But every week out, and I think I played 62 of the 63. So week in, week out, the glorious double with Kenny Dalglish's first year in charge. The teammate, the camaraderie, nothing will ever beat that glorious double. And scoring that goal. And as I've said many times, the second goal that I scored, I'd practiced that goal, must have been hundreds, if not 250,000 times in the Middlesbrough car park. Right foot, middle of the ball, low bottom right-hand corner, because I'd drawn the target there. And I'd hit that many, many, many times, late at night, early in the morning. So that's why if I'd been struck by lightning, I'd be a happy man.
Back to Craig in a tick. Back in episode 37 of the pod, go and check it out, we featured another footballer, Tim Cahill. Now retired, Tim has a record few Australian footballers can match. He also believes in the theory that those who work hard achieve the best results.
You're in a situation, and everyone's in this situation, everyday walks of life, and it's a competition, and the winner's always going to be whoever wants it more. And all I can say is anything that's worth having hurts, whether it's your wife or your kids or business or anything, sport, it's got to hurt. If it was easy getting it, it's not worth it. Everyone will be doing it. And I feel that the people that are successful, the people that I've played with, or the people that I admire in business are the people that are obsessed with not just winning, but failing to become better people and better at what they do. So, yeah, I love the challenge.
That's Tim Cahill on episode 37 of the show. Go back and check it out. I get a lot of social media messages saying, why don't you get this person on? Why don't you get that person on? Go back and check first, because often the people have already been guests. There's so many episodes there waiting for you. Alrighty, let's get back to Craig. Can I stop you for 15 seconds and just grab someone and I'll explain why? Just don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Come in. Craig.
Hello.
This is Mac.
Hello, Mac.
Hi, Craig.
People on the show that listen to this show know him as the Big Penguin, which is his nickname. And Before we do a podcast that I have a chance to research, he records, or his sister records, a question on the phone of the guest. Right. And then I play it to the guest. I have a chat about what the question's going to be. Yeah. So due to the fact that we didn't have a chance to know this was going to happen today, as he walked in from school, I reckon his mum has said what's going on. So I actually don't know what's coming here, but This is the question live for the first time, Craig, from the Big Penguin.
Good. Bring it on.
Hey, Craig.
G'day, mate.
I was watching some of your videos of all the goals you kicked. You've kicked a lot of goals. But what I want to know is, what's the best goal you've ever kicked?
Good question, mate.
Well, it is a very good question. And when you say the best, well, the one that I'm thinking of is the one I just explained to your father, was in the FA Cup final in 1986 against Liverpool. So you got Liverpool versus Everton, which is from the same city. So they're our biggest rivals, right? And we beat them at Wembley. So Wembley's a famous stadium, and it's the old Wembley. They've rebuilt it since, and it's where England won the World Cup in 1966. And how old are you, Mac?
I'm 9.
Okay, well, when I was about 6 years old, 3 years younger than you, I had a really bad scar on my leg, I got injured really badly, and I had an operation. So I had a dream, because I saw England playing soccer in the World Cup at Wembley in 1966. I had a dream about playing at Wembley and score a winning goal. So then in 1986, which was 20 years later, that dream came true, and that's where I scored the goal against Everton, and we won the FA Cup.
Cool.
So it wasn't a very exciting goal. It was like a tap in, but you said the best. And when I say the best, I mean that meant so much to all the Liverpool fans that day, and it means so much to me. And people always remember that. I scored a lot of better goals, but not one that means as much. So that's the answer.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Good question. Mate, you can take over your dad's job.
Good on you, mate. I plugged myself back in here. You did well doing that live.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I could keep talking about football, but I would like to move on to some of the things you've invented. I've never had an inventor on the show before. You've invented a few different things. Let's start with the football boot. Tell me about that.
Well, I lived in Dublin for quite a while, 6 years, and some of my kids grew up there. And I sat down for a beer with a journalist once from The Guardian. And he said to me, he said, people are really fascinated. He said, first question, he said, they say, how can a footballer become an inventor? You know? And I said, well, that's the first problem. I said, I was an inventor that became a footballer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's the story, and that's how, when I was presented with the problem by Jack Charlton, right, he was 100% right. But I created a way to solve the problem. I invented a way of getting better on a daily basis. So I said, first of all, I am an inventor that became a player. Second of all, the whole concept of the Predator boot. Every day I went to the Middlesbrough car park to try and get better. I thought about the simplistic notion of what part of my foot do I put on what part of the ball to what effect, meaning top spin, back spin, side spin, a little bit like a cricket ball and the swing of it, or the spin, you know, where it hits the turf, or the swing generally is the same as how you swerve a ball in soccer, and it's high and low speed. Did you know a ball never, ever accelerates as it's going through the air? It's always decelerating. Now, what you've also got is high and low pressure if you can make that ball spin, right? And that's what swerve is. Right, okay. And it's much like the swerve on a football. So fundamentally, when I retired from football, because my sister got sick, I was 27, and I walked away from the game, came back to Australia. I said, I'll never get back into football again. I'll never play again. And then I got a knock on the door, and it was two little kids. And they said, oh, hello, Mr. Johnston. We're from the local soccer team, but we're not very good. Will you come and coach us? A little bit like Mac there, you know, about his age. And yeah. Not as cute as Mac, but anyway, I went down and had a look at him, Avalon, and believe me, these kids weren't very good. Anyway, so I was coaching them, and I said, look, you got to learn to swerve a ball. So I explained to them, I said, it's like a table tennis bat. Think of your shoe as a table tennis bat, and then you can get top spin on it, you know, okay. Or back spin. And they said, oh, we get it. Yeah, we play table tennis. And then one of the little kids put his hand up and said, yeah, Mr. Johnson, that's fine, but it's raining now, and our boots are made of leather, not rubber, so it won't grip the same way. And I thought, oh, yeah, you're right. So, and I've been thinking about this for years, because of the Middlesbrough car park. So I'd tried various surfaces over the years. So it started to gush down with rain, and it got postponed, the training session. So on the way home, I said, yeah, the kids reminded me. So I went home and I took the table, just like this, I took the top off the rubber off a table tennis bat, and I stuck it on my boot, and I wrapped it with elastic band. I went out in the rain, I kicked the ball, which is made of polyurethane, right? And the butadiene of the table tennis rubber made this squealing like a pig noise against the polyurethane with the water in between. So this squealing noise of a pig. And I said, yeah, the kids are right, 100% right. So then...
So that's the rough part of the table tennis, to impart the spin of the bat.
It's the grip and that gotcha. Combination of rubber... As I explained, so it was spinning like all sorts of things. But I tried this before with various surfaces because I knew that the whole thing was about a grip. So I then became fascinated. I was working at Wide World of Sports at the time, by the way, when this was on with Darryl Eastlake and Maxie Walker.
Maxie Walker,
yeah. I was working with all those blokes, Gibbo. And I had
was Alan Jones doing it? Formula One Alan Jones?
Both right. Rugby Alan Jones and Formula One. They were both there. So I was working with all of those blokes, and I was doing a story a week, and I loved it. I just loved it. And but then I got more and more fascinated by this, the whole concept. So anyway, long story short, various people had also approached me with their ideas, and I thought no. So there was no patents, no iPhones, no any of that stuff still. So I looked up patents at the lawyer, and it was a very expensive process, but nobody had ever created like an increased sweet spot area. So I did that on 3 surfaces, right? And then I created a couple of prototypes, 40, 50 prototypes. And then I thought, no, there's something in this. So I went over to Europe. I went to Adidas, and they completely knocked it back. They said, nah, it'll never work. We've tried it. You've tried it before. Showed them some of my older prototypes. They said it'll never work. And they said, anyway, we've got no money. We're going bankrupt, which they were. So that was the end of Adidas. And I knew it worked. So I kept going and going and going. And at the same time, the TV show was getting up and running, the main event. And I found someone called Larry Emder.
This is a TV show you invented?
Yeah, I created the main event.
The main event.
Thanks a lot. Welcome back to the main event. We are in round 4. 60 points up for grabs for our families here. Before we go on, let's check the all-important scores right now.
So I was doing that, and I wrote it and I scripted it, and Larry was working at Channel 10 as a news guy. And I said, Larry, I said, the thing about you, I said, is women love you and blokes don't hate you, because you're one of us. I said, so he became the host of the main event, and then that went on primetime television. So I was juggling that with the patents, so I put him on the back burner.
So what was your role on the main event?
Well, I was executive producer.
Right, of course you were. Of course you bloody were.
I wrote the show.
So the boot was on the back burner then?
Yeah, I put it on the back burner because Adidas had said, no, it'll never work. So then, as I coached the kids a bit more, I would do more and more prototypes, and I'd cut up all sorts of things and put them on the boot. And just, it always teased me because don't forget, my existence once upon a time involved waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going down to a car park and kicking a ball religiously. And then my career depended on it, like the goal against Everton in the FA Cup final. So I knew that I was right. So I eventually went back to Europe, and it's a bit of a long story how the Predator came about. But I took it to Nike, I took it to Reebok, I took it to Umbro, I took it to I think Asics, and they all knocked it back and said, no, it'll never work. And mate, I was feeling a little bit like Jack Charlton in the car park. It's like, I know this works. I know it works. So I'd spent so much money on patents and legals and travel now, and little videos. I shot little videos. So then I eventually ended up going back to Germany. Do you want to hear the story, the rest of it?
Oh, my word, I want to hear the story. You've got me on the hook.
So what happened was I turned up in Munich in the middle of December, middle of winter, and it was freezing, and I knocked on the door at Bayern Munich, and I said, can I see Mr. Beckenbauer, please, Franz Beckenbauer, who's the president of the club? And they said, who are you? I said, oh, here we go again. My name's Craig Johnson. I'm from northern New South Wales, Australia. But I played for Liverpool. Anyway, the woman went away.
But I played for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the woman went away. She said, the Kaiser, he is very busy.
The king of German football.
He is very busy. I don't know whether he can see you. So anyway, she came back. She says, jawohl, the Kaiser, he knows you. He knows you. He loves Liverpool and he knows you. He said, but come back tomorrow, he said, and bring four pair of this shoe. I said, okay. So the next day, still snowing, freezing, I turn up with 4 pairs of the boot, right foot, and he's got his tracksuit on. So he's the president of the club, but he's brought with him Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Paul Breitner, Hansi Müller, and there was one other player. But anyway, 4 of the best German players ever. Gerd Müller, the incredible goal scorer. So anyway, they've come out onto the snow at Bayern Munich's training field, and they're trying to boot on, and they're kicking the ball to each other, right? And they're talking in German, and I've got this little camera. You know, cameras were really in their infancy. What year was this? This would have been 90-ish, yeah.
And you don't know what they're saying?
No, I don't speak any German, but I know what jawohl mean in deine Klein, and das ist good, you know, I know what that means. And they were talking about, and they were making hand gestures, and they were going, you know, and jawohl. So I'm filming it all, right? And they're doing different things, and they're moving further and further, and they're hitting the ball far, just like only a German can. Then they start bending the ball. And, mate, it was freezing, by the way. Have you ever played soccer in the snow in England or Europe?
Oh, I've played a fair bit of soccer in England in winter, to be honest.
Well,
yeah.
There you go. Well, you know how when it's freezing and it's snowing and you kick the ball, it's like kicking a brick. Because the ball's frozen, and now your feet are frozen because it's only thin kangaroo leather.
Yeah.
Right? So it hurts. But the rubber's not hurting them. Okay. So they're smacking the ball and it's not hurting them. So they're going. So there's lots of stuff, hand waving and gesturing going on about all of this stuff. So I filmed it all and I said exactly what are you saying? What are you saying? They said, it doesn't matter what we're saying. You've got the tape. It doesn't matter. You know, and the Germans are very defiant. I said, well, do you like it? They said, it's on the tape. So I said, okay, well, thank you. And they had to go to training. So they were off, you know, because they were training, with the first team. So I got in a car and I went straight back to Herzogenaurach, which is near Nuremberg, which is where the Adidas factory is. And as I told you, Adidas were going bankrupt. They were trading as insolvent. They couldn't pay their debts. So the Adi Dassler's daughters, were selling the business to a French guy called Bernard Tapie for $1. $1. So Adidas was being sold for $1, and everybody kind of knew, and it was a big deal. So I'd met Bernard Tapie at a UNICEF function the year before in the World Cup in Italy. That's exactly. Remember when I couldn't remember what year it was?
Yes.
So I'd met Bernard Tapie because I was a UNICEF ambassador with Pelé. It was Pelé, Jürgen Klinsmann, and Ruud Gullit. And myself.
Ruud Gullit?
Yeah.
Dutch bloke.
Yeah, we were the 4 ambassadors. So we'd been introduced to Bernard Tapie. So he's now buying Adidas for $1.
For $1, okay.
Yes. So I've come to the reception, the security guards. I said, look, can you let me? They said, oh, no, you're the Australian guy. They said, no, the rubber shoe doesn't work.
The rubber shoe doesn't work.
Yeah, the rubber shoe. It was called Das Superboot back then. Das Superboot. Okay. Das Superboot, it doesn't, kleiner work, and they wave him finger like this. And I'm saying, no, it does. I've got the Kaiser and Rummenigge. What? I've got the Kaiser and Rummenigge on the tape. Doing what? Kicking the ball, so my German is worse than my Middlesbrough accent, just kind of same thing. So I said, they have to see it. So anyway, this bloke phones up and Tapie answered the phone and he said, no, you've got to let this guy in. I've met him before, right? And blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they let me in. I went up to the boardroom, all somber faces, and they've got a big television screen and they're watching some, business plan or something. So I said, look, I've got this tape off the Kaiser. What does he say? I said, I don't know. Put it in. So put it in, and there must have been 15 to 20 people in the room.
And you still don't know what he said on it?
No idea. So anyway, within, 45 seconds, all of them stood up and they all started clapping. And they said, this is the future of our brand. And then Tapie and a guy called Rob Strasser, who was one of the original Nike founders, pulled me aside and said, you can't leave this room until we do a deal. So I did a deal with him on the spot.
Today, we're going to take a look back in time, as I'm going to walk you through every single generation and give you the entire history of one of the most legendary football boot silos to ever be made. We are, of course, talking about the Adidas Predator. It all started with this guy, the OG Adidas Predator. Now, the idea behind Predator originated from former footballer Craig Johnston, who wanted a football boot inspired by the grippy texture on a table tennis bat. So he developed the idea and later sold it to Adidas, who engineered these...
And how many pairs of these boots, Dust Super Boot, the Predator, were sold?
Oh, it's the largest selling soccer shoe of all time. And not long after I arrived, another super wealthy chap called Robert Louis Dreyfus came in, a French guy, a Swiss guy, and floated the business for more than $1.5 billion. And all the media, right, and the Wall Street Journal said the two things that created the enormous uptick in the share price,
yes,
for the float was the Adidas Predator boot and the traction sole, both of which were mine, right? And Madonna had worn a red miniskirt on the catwalk with 3 white stripes underneath. So they'd hit a fashion market, and they then became kings again of the world's largest sport, which was soccer. But David Beckham was wearing it, Zidane, Lionel Messi.
Everybody was wearing it.
Yeah, everybody. Largest selling shop, and it made them billions and billions of dollars.
And crass question, obvious question, did it make you lots of money?
It did to start with. And then I think they realised that I was making too much money because I owned the patents. They didn't own the patents. So when you're a global company like that, it was a David and Goliath battle. And I was David, and I lost the battle. And they won. And it still hurts. Yeah. But people know that story. People know that the Predator was my invention and patent. It was never theirs. And, so legally, I feel the wrong thing was done. And that was 20 years ago. By the way, patents only last 20 years. So it ran out 2 years ago. So I've got the next iteration up my sleeve, I must say. And I know what the next generation of Predators are.
I could do this for another 2 hours. You couldn't. I have one final question for you, and I always finish with this question. Craig, for all the youngsters listening out there that want to achieve some success in their field, whether that's to be a professional footballer or an iPhone programmer or a guitarist or a scientist, from your wealth of experience, and I say wealth of experience, what is that one little kernel you can leave them with? And this is the hardest question, but it's the best question.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny one, and probably one you're not expecting, but before you're a sportsman or woman, or before you're a businessman or woman, you're a person, and your sport will make you a better person because it will make you win together and win gracefully, and lose together and lose gracefully. And your sport and your personality will be with you till the very end of your life. And life should be about joy and fun. And somehow you've got to turn your chores, right? And I don't just mean sports chores, but cleaning your bedroom and all of that stuff into fun, so that you can get more time in the backyard or what you really want to do. So I think that when you've been a successful sportsman at the end of the day, or woman, you look back and you look at the poor little kids struggling, and you want to help them, and you say, well, it's not just about the sport, and it's not about trying harder that everyone says or being tougher. It's about finding happiness through solving problems rather than letting the problems tear you apart. So I think that life is a roller coaster of problems, and it's how you solve them or attempt to solve them that makes you a happy person. And at the end of the day, when you get to 60 years and you look back, you've got to be happy, because it's no good being a fabulous sportsman and being miserable. We know plenty of them, don't we?
We do. It's a great answer. It's a great answer.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I just think that sport brings so much joy and so much happiness to us when we're doing it and we're winning. But also it teaches us lessons when we're losing, and it's such a valuable thing to do. So you know, I told you before that I had this dream to be the best soccer player in history. And kids, I failed miserably. But what I did end up doing is playing for Liverpool, right? And I might have been the worst player on the world's best team, but I played for Liverpool. So I'm happy. I'm a happy man. I'm not Maradona. I'm not Pelé. But I'm so happy that I punched above my weight and I figured out the problems. And when you get to my age, then you love your country and you love your sport and you want to leave a legacy. So you look back and you say, well, how can I help young people coming this way that got their whole life to live? Well, I'm up here having lived my whole life looking down there and saying it's not a lot of the stuff you keep hearing about winning. It's about love and joy and teammates and having teammates that are your best mates for life. You know, we've all got best friends, but teammates become your best mates. So there's some joy in that. And it's not what you win in life. It's who you win it with and how you win it. You know, it's how you win it. And that's my advice. It's a bit long-winded, but...
It's not. Can I finish by saying something to you? You mentioned as you get older, you start to think about your legacy. Now, you will have left a legacy for all sorts of people. I think it's only right after listening to you that I tell you the legacy that you left for me. Because I was that 9, 10-year-old asking mum and dad to stay up to watch the FA Cup final and seeing this bloke with long hair and a red jumper on that I knew nothing about from Australia scoring these goals in this fantastic game of football. So it introduced football to me, and it introduced an understanding to me that this bloke from Australia has gone and done it. So what else can people from Australia go and do? So in one way, it made me fall in love with the game of football. But even at that tender age, it was able to show me in my mind that anything, it sounds cliched, Craig, but it shows you that anything is possible. Because this bloke, who I had no idea about the story you've just told me, I just saw this bloke and they would say, and here's the Australian Craig Johnston. And it was like, well, how the hell's this guy got there? And that, to me, that's the legacy you've left for me. And it's a fantastic legacy. And I had no understanding of what you went through to get there. And with 17 minutes research, mate, I could not be happier with how this has gone and the illumination you've provided me as to how you can achieve what you dream to achieve in sport. And I couldn't be more grateful to you. And I hope it was enjoyable to you as it was illuminating for me.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Howie. I appreciate that. And Matty John said a similar thing to me. He said that him and Andrew had never read a book. And then they read my book, which is called Walk Alone. And
which I would have done in a typical interview experience. But you gave me 17 minutes.
Well, let Mac read it. Let Mac read it.
I will.
This is not about you. It's about Mac and his mates. So I had a laugh with Matty and I said, that's funny that, mate. I said, because I only sold one book and I often wondered who'd bought that. Anyway, but he said the same thing. And I must say, you know, it makes me feel. Gavin Robertson said a similar thing, and I'm doing a bike ride with Steve Wall on the weekend.
The captain's ride.
Yeah, the captain's ride down in Kiama. And now that I have retired, you know, it's those moments that you really, really sort of choke up and you get a little bit like when Dad passed away, and you just say, hang on a sec. You know, I really have done something that I didn't know I was doing it because I was living over there. And I when I came back home, it was only for a week or two weeks mid-season, and I'd always go to Mum and Dad and hide from everyone. So people haven't seen me. So I didn't know the effect it was having back here, but now I'm home. It's quite emotional. And when I hear people like, as I said, Maddie and Steve Waugh saying similar thing to what you said, I thought, well, this is it's got to be put to good use to pass the message on that we all know to our kids. Because I'm just a bit worried that they're not getting the messages that we got. That spurred us on to do something good and wholesome and, only the things that sport can bring. So I know it's a long-winded conversation, but I think it's a very important one, especially when you're talking about Australians, right? Who, I think that we're a little bit lost now and we don't know what our identity is. I think we're looking for who we are, and it's a little bit worrying, don't you think?
It's a very different country to the country I grew up in, which seemed to be a positive, if you have a crack, people will support you country, whereas now it's like if you have a crack, it seems a small minority with a loud voice are hoping you fail and rejoice in your failure rather than your success.
Wow. Well, it's worth fighting for, isn't it?
It is.
It
is.
I've never been into the politics in Australia because I've never been here long enough, but I've been now living at home for 4 years, and I just shake my head with disbelief in some of the things I see when I watch the news programs of various. I watch all sides because I'm anti-political, and the target's Mac, and the young Matildas, and they're all our kids.
Craig, thank you so much for joining me on the Howie Games. You're a star.
Mate, longest interview in history, wasn't it?
But a brilliant one. Thank you.
Imagine if we'd had a few beers.
And next time I'm in Newcastle.
There you go, mate. It's a deal.
Well done.
Good on you, mate.
So there you go, a podcast with less than 20 minutes preparation. That might be the new way forward. Thanks to Craig. What a cracking storyteller with a cracking story. I hope you all love that episode as much as I do and can somehow apply Craig's approach to your life. So good. Das Narded as always. Old mate MJ has rejoined the Howie Games crew and he's working on a new development that we can hopefully bring to you in the next couple of months, so keep an eye out for that. It'd be great if you could do me a favour and recommend the pod to someone. I'd really appreciate it. Spread the word about the show. That'd be cool. Look after yourselves. Until next Thursday with Jeff Fennick. Peace and love.
And we can do it if we try. If we try. If we try.
Listener.